Well, folks, here we come up. The first this weekend is going to be October 1st, I think Sunday. Their new bow season coming in, and a lot of you guys know that we're pretty big on whitetail hunting here. Tell you what, stay tuned into this podcast because if you're one of those guys that are looking for that next new level, a trick, a bag of tricks to have, listen to our next guest and what we're going to be talking about. But hey, I'm George Lynch with Legendary Gear, the game call company that is legend by design. Dan Young is going to be our guest this week, and Dan's agreed to sit in with me and to talk about something that we both feel pretty strong on. That's is the mock scrapes. But hey, Dan, thank you for sitting in with us today.
What's up, Georgie?
It's another day in paradise, brother. Another day in paradise. No, this is that time of year. Normally, I'm already ahead of the game and got my mock scrapes going. But you're a big mock scrape guy, aren't you, Dan?
Oh, I love mock scrapes. Absolutely.
You know, it's one of the things that there's two things that you learn through the years is locations of your mock scrapes, but also finding the right stuff for the right product out there that you have confidence in. And Dan, you kind of hooked me up here last year, dread me in the direction of pure whitetail. And I got to use it for the first time last year. And you're right, it was the real deal stuff.
Oh, it's great stuff. Larry and Philip introduced me to pure whitetail probably 4 years ago, George. I mean, I'll be honest with you folks, I tried mock scraping. I've been doing this hunting thing for 35 years and I've been doing the radio shows for 26 years. So, I mean, I've heard and tried a lot of stuff over that time. And I hadn't had a lot of, I won't say the name of the company, but I tried using other deer products that I got at the store. And I would go out and I'd apply, try to be scent free as possible, wear gloves, wear my hunting boots, not trying to leave a lot of scent, get on a trail, get on a travel corridor or pinch point or in a corner of a food source and try to establish a mock. And I just never really had any luck with it, to be honest with you. And then Philip and Larry came up to Iowa, like I said, several years ago. And we were out, we got a piece of hunting ground together and we started going out and putting up cameras and everything. And Philip was over there making a scrape. I said, "What are you doing there, P-Vitty?" And he goes, "I'm putting out my pure whitetail. That's what I'm doing, Dan." And am I seeing something fly across the screen in front of you?
I don't know.
What is that? That's weird. Okay, never mind. So anyway, so I said, okay. And then Larry goes, "You don't know about pure whitetail?" And I said, "Well, I've heard of it," but he goes, "Come here." And so we made a mock scrape, and I put my Tacticam reveal camera up, and we went around the corner, went and established 2 more scrapes on a good scrape line, and we got back to the truck, and I as God is my witness, we were probably from the time we started that one on the north fence to the time we got back around was probably maybe 2 hours, and I already had deer hitting that scrape.
Wow.
And I said, that's crazy. And I've been using it ever since. And I've been very, very happy with it. It works. And for decoy and deer, we'll get into that probably later, huh? But that's all I use anymore is I'll use the pure whitetail cache and a wind scent unit, or I'll use the premium buck dust and inside my Dave Smith buck decoy, because that stuff's money.
You brought up a good point there, that talking about using the scent and then and using it in conjunction with a decoy. Do you majority of the time when you're using this and you're hunting over your scrapes, do you majority of the times hunt with the decoy or without a decoy, or does it depend just on that time of year?
It's the time of the year. I don't really try to get excited about decoy hunting till like the 25th, 26th of October. I'll take my decoy down this time of year. I'll probably do it here next week, and I'll give it a good I'll take that pure whitetail scent spray, and don't use dirt. Use the non-scented regular scent suppressant spray, folks. You don't want to put a dirt smell on your buck decoy. But I'll wash it really good, and then I'll take it out to the farm where I'm going to hunt, George, and then I'll just leave it for a week and let it weather, because I want it to smell like the woods. I want it to be like it's actually belongs there. So I'll cover it up with branches, or I'll hide it whichever way I can so nobody takes it from me. But and then when I get out there, if I'm hunting around the 25th, 26th, I'll take that premium buck dust and I'll put that inside the cavity, and then about a foot behind it, I'll either run the WinScent 2.0 unit with the pure whitetail cash scent, which is their dominant buck scent. And I'll put that on a 3-minute cycle and let that heat up and get into the wind column. If I don't do that, then I'll take the premium buck dust, which is the powder. They call it dust, and I'll put it on Milo stubs or corn stubs, whatever I'm hunting around. And I'll just put that a foot behind. So, because most of the time, a mature buck's going to circle downwind of that decoy so they can smell them, right? They're going to come in, they're going to approach that way, and then they'll come around. They want to make that eye contact. They'll start going that sideways thing and getting all
Right.
gomered up, and then that's when you'll have your shot. But Larry sold me on that. Go ahead.
What were you talking about? Something about the beads? You're heating beads up? Was there?
You don't know what a WinScent unit is?
No.
Okay. Boy, have we got some educating to do to you.
Absolutely.
WinScent is a company that's Fourth Arrow camera arms. Then they have WinScent. They got Final Rest. Great companies. A WinScent unit is, I don't think I have my WinScent here. I think it's outside already. It's a tube, electronic tube, and then you got these scent cartridges that's full of deer premium, like deer. I think the one I use is called Cash. It's from a deer. That's the name of the deer they get the urine from. And you screw that cartridge in and it heats it up. You know what vaping, those vape pens are, where you see people vaping and that big cloud of steam or smoke comes out? It's the same thing. It heats that cartridge up and it emits a vapor up into the wind column.
I'll be darned.
And it with it being heated at the molecular level, that stays in that wind column for up to 300-400 yards. Okay. And it's got a little programmer on it. You can set it to go 1 minute or 3 minute, or you can hit the remote and do it manually. So you see a deer that's downwind of you coming out. You can hit that a couple of times and let that disperse. I usually set it up for like every 3 minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can usually get 2 or 3 days of hunting on one recharge. You just charge it and you just throw it in your pack. I put a little tripod on it and I set it up about 2 or 3 feet from the deer and I let it roll. But like I said, I go ahead and with what Larry and Philip taught me is I take that premium buck dust and I'll put it inside the deer cavity. There's a big hole underneath that buck decoy from Dave Smith, and you can chunk all that powder, that dust in there. And man, I tell you what, it looks like a Skittle bag because all the dust is different colors. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red. It looks like a big bag of Skittles. But man, I tell you what, I've had tremendous luck with that the last several seasons.
And just spraying that up into the cavity.
Yeah, you just turn the buck decoy upside down and powder it in there, and just put it up on your stand. And if they come down, that scent's going to radiate out of that deer. And
wow.
Yeah, it works really good.
That is a great idea. There's something I learned new.
Yeah, I learned from Philip and Larry. I mean, total disclosure. See, that's why I hunt with good hunters. See, I always pick stuff up, even though I've been bow hunting forever. You're never too old to learn, right?
Well, exactly. And not everything is 100% sure, but there's always a basis, and sometimes of putting the odds into your favor. I'm not saying that a decoy all works every time. And like you, it seems to be that the time of the year I've tried to use it if I was hunting an area that because of the small woodlots and everything, it isn't like Michigan when we had the bigger woods and the bigger swamps. Here, it's like Southern Illinois. You go in and if you bump these deer, a lot of times it's a domino effect because this woodlot isn't that big, or if it's a fence row, and of course those deer kind of go and bump one another and keep the domino thing going. So that's what I tried to use in my favor. And we're talking the first week of October, and anytime it's before that rut, and it's been about a 50-50, it worked, or it actually was a hindrance to me starting early. I never really have had before the rut, going early, had what I call mature deer come in and aggressive to the decoy like you do during the rut or that pre-rut.
Well, it's what's nice is, see, I get out there in June or late June or July, and I'll start making those mocks. And what's nice about that, you get those deer, you know, deer, and a lot of people, a lot of people don't know this. And I didn't, if I would, honestly, if I wasn't doing the radio shows for a living, I probably wouldn't have known it either. But just by having biologists on for over, you know, on the radio 3 or 4 times a year, every year, deer will use a scrape, or they'll tender a scrape all year round. Okay. It's just not during the rut. That's their social media. That's their Facebook. That's how they check in with the residential deer. They'll leave their scent, you know, when they're rubbing, or they'll pee in it, or they'll scent check just to see what's going on. Now, as we get closer to the rutting activity, though, everything kind of picks up. I mean, it gets more noticeable, and they start monitoring and running those checking those scrapes every day instead of like once a week or whatever. It intensifies.
Right.
So what I like to do is get out there in June, or after 4th of July, and I'll get out there and I'll when I set my trail cameras up, because I want to see what my residential deer looks like, I'll take an inventory of what I got running around, and I'll put a mock scrape out there, and I'll use a premium buck dust. I think there's another scent that's called Mesmerize. It's in a blue powder. We've been using that on the licking branches and stuff. But I'll take that premium buck dust and I'll put it down into the scrape. I'll make about a 3 foot scrape, get all the grass and everything out, and just take a big branch or whatever I can to rake it out. And then I'll put that premium buck dust down. You can hang a hemp rope. This year we started hanging hemp ropes, and putting preorbital on that. So for their preorbital glands. So when they're rubbing and looking up in there, it's really, really been working nice. We've been getting some great pictures.
Yeah, it's just that I do believe that, like you said, they have those regular communication areas with, and a lot of people would call it licking branches for years, but it happens to be in the prime spot, and it's just that branch that's a good social communication between actually the whole deer herd, and probably tell the health of the deer herd, you know, just in some of those licking branches, and that they're using year round. You know, that's one of the things that I would notice.
There's a buck picture I got the other day of a nice 8 coming right by my scrape.
Yeah, I see my stand just on the corner right.
Yeah,
it says Georgie's spot.
Yeah, there's another little spot. I got a nice little one coming through my other scrape on the other side. So they hit. I get pictures every day. I mean, that to me is what's really nice, because it does a lot of my scouting for me. You know.
Well, last year I had. It was actually the first time really of hunting over mock scrapes in a ground blind, which I'm starting to do more and more, and I think you as well. You know, I hunt more of ground blinds than I did in the past. When I was younger, everything was hanging in a tree, but I actually found down here that, you know, some of these spots, and because it's so hilly, and the coulees and the way the wind is really messed up a lot of times, and because you have a lot of deer, sooner or later you're going to get busted. And if you have a good buck in your area, worst thing you want to hear before that last light is, you know, some doe stomping her feet and winding you for about the last 15 minutes. I found with ground blinds that it helped me fight, especially with my ozonics, really becoming foolproof in my scent, and the importance of getting in and out. But it was really cool because it's the first time I really set up a good mock. I had a beautiful mock scrape, and actually what I did is I put it right next to the scrape where they normally, historically that's a spot. It's a great travel corridor. There's always the scrapes there, but I added a bigger scrape next to it, and then they ended up leaving their scrape and started utilizing my scrape. And the cool thing is watch these bucks when you're in a blind and they're about 10 yards from you, and they get up on their hind feet, you know, and you're sitting there on the ground. It wasn't that impressive when you're sitting in a tree stand, but now when you're on ground level and that deer gets way up on his hind feet, especially you got a decent buck, it's pretty cool, intimidating a bit.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I shot my Kansas buck out of a ground blind last year, 15 yards, 20 yards.
Yeah.
When he walked right by right by the blind, I could have smacked him on the rear with the arrow. And it just gets your heart thumping. And I was shaking. I actually had to stop and talk to myself. Now settle down, just take a breath. He's going to be okay. Because I had deer coming in these scrapes all day. And Donovan told me there was a really nice 8 in there, and he was just a nice old 6-7 year old deer. And I said, you know, that's awesome. So he came in, but when they're that close and that old heart just starts thumping and you start,
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear me on the TV show on Respect the Game. You can hear me. I'm breathing heavy. I had to actually just, all right, settle down. It's gonna be okay. And if I ever lose that, George, I'll quit hunting.
You know what, 100%. And it's you're at that ground level view.
Yeah.
That it's just, I'm so close I can't make a mistake. He could probably hear my breath. At the same token, you fooled him, and I think that's another thing. In a tree stand, you kind of know what you can get away with, but on that ground, you're at eye level, and it's like they're aware of you have to be aware, even though I'm back in that blind, that every movement I make.
Oh, they can hear you. I mean, I had my ozonics up. What's nice about a ground blind is you can actually open that up and make a flue, like an airflow.
Right.
And then I got my hanger, and I'll hang my ozonics up in that top corner behind me, or wherever the air is gonna, be in. But he came straight downwind of me. He didn't smell me, which was nice. So, but yeah, that's fun. But yeah, scraping, if it's a great thing to do during the summer, if you're a passionate whitetail hunter and you want to see what's going on, you're gonna during the rut, you're gonna see deer that you don't know that's around, because you're gonna get other deer coming in and out of your area. But those mock scrapes are just a great way to see what you got running around, and you habitualize those deer into coming in and checking those scrapes. So as the rutting activity increases, they're going to hit those scrapes off more often, and it can help get you an opportunity.
Yeah, I can remember a few years back. I mean, we were banging mock scrapes for a long time, and we were hunting southern Illinois, and I remember went down there, and they had the special woods that they never hunted, the forbidden woods, but they allowed me to go in there. This was the first year. I was so pumped. So I go in there and I established my mock scrapes right away. And it was tough because it started warming up and the wind was out of the south. And I mean, I just didn't want to take a chance of being in the wrong wind. But scrapes were the overhanging branch, because that's the most important thing. If you really want to kill someone's scrape, don't pee in it. Break his overhanging branch.
Yeah, they want that licking branch, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you basically can ruin that. I've seen peeing in scrapes and watch deer come in and scrape right over it, but it's not a practice I suggest maybe to Larry and Ryan, but
yeah, I get enough trouble with them guys. I don't need any more problems with Larry Mack and Ryan.
But at that time, I had a friend who raised whitetails, and I used to get the urine straight from his bucks. And I'd have it in the refrigerator in a gallon, and I used a spray bottle a lot. And the most important thing to me, and I learned this years ago from a guy named Roger Rathar, took me under his wing, and he was kind of one of my heroes. And Roger wrote a couple of books in pursuit of trophy whitetails, and the other one is hunting trophy whitetail. But anyway, he was talking about how deer like fresh earth, and if you see scrapes and stuff like that, you dig that topsoil. We had our pond dug here, and then we bulldoze, and it's like, it's exactly right. When all that fresh dirt, you'd see the next day all those deer tracks down in there.
Yeah. So, if you disturb the earth, they're gonna the deer. That's an attractant. They want to check. Deer are very curious and social critters. I mean, they just are. So if you open that ground up and they smell that disturbed earth, they're going to come in and check it out. He's exactly right.
And that's what I did. I have a little hatchet with a claw on the other end. I had my old scrape kit, carried all that. I used string also. If I didn't have an overhanging branch, I'd use my extended pruners, pull down a branch and tie it. Or I have nailed branches to trees. And I had a little ordeal that I made up with dowel rods that I would put coming out of a tree to make my own scrapes and stuff. But I was starting now, but getting that dirt off there, and you take that and loosen, and then you get that loose earth, and you can smell that loose earth as it comes up. And I would just spray the buck pea right in there. And I'm telling you, I sprayed the overhanging branches with buck pea. And it would take no time, and my scrapes would get taken over. And like you said, you'd start them early in the year, And if you started, I could start in September and August and have my mock scrapes. And I can guarantee you by the second week of September, there's going to be some new rubs come open around my scrapes that they're starting to spend some time there. They're getting a little active, and they'll start scraping and rubbing around they'll hit your scrape, but they'll start rubbing. And the more that intensifies, the more rubs, that's when you know that, hey, this is getting good. And then that scrape, I'll definitely just urine is what I'm using. And I'll just keep putting it. Once they find that scrape, and I was getting big old turds in that scrape like this. And I did find another spot. I was scouting midday to take a stand down, and I noticed that they had the CRP. They didn't farm anything in the one corner of this woods. And first time I went down to Illinois, I had it leads up to the bedding area, but it's a little island that went out there, and I made my scrapes. And first opening morning, I had a nice poking young buck sticking his nose in the scrape just as it was turning daylight. Well, as I walked in there, I jumped a doe in front of me, and then I looked and saw a big rat go over the hill. So I set up on him, and I was going to hunt the Forbidden Woods, and I did hunt it that evening with the wind finally right. And I had and I looked in, and the top of that scrape, the overhanging branch I made, it kept getting less and less, and it just beat the heck. Big tracks, big turds. Well, I get watching, and here comes this little button buck behind me, and he goes, and he gets into that scrape, and he goes up on his hind feet, starts hitting his head and knocking the crap out of that scrape. But he did something that I've never witnessed before. He got down like a dog when he gets in a dead animal or some other animal's feces, and how they roll in it. But this button buck would roll his shoulder in it and rub his body and do a flip, rub his neck and his shoulders. And he just I had him doing a flip, rubbing into that buck pea. Yeah. And all of a sudden he heard something. He looks towards the right, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden he just takes off running, darts. He goes behind me about 60 yards, and a big, huge buck walked in. Took him forever to get to me. The lighting, it was starting to get dark. And I just knew that I wasn't going to take a chance of bumping him or trying to get spotted or shooting him. It was too late. But in the next morning, get a move, and I get one good crack at that deer. And of course, I went to that other spot where I saw the big buck. I ended up killing him, and he was a 160-inch 8-point. But the mock scrapes is, no matter where you're at, it's the whitetails have that same philosophy, the same genetic structure of wanting to rut.
Oh yeah. They want to get it on when it's time to do that. That's for sure. During the rut too, we use I use white lightning, which is the doe estrus, and I'll put that on a drag rag with me when I go in and out, and then I'll actually run either the white lightning dust, or I'll run a white lightning cartridge in that wind scent unit. And I'll have that up. Dave Smith they got some neat stuff coming out. I can't say what it is now, but next year I'm going to be doing something a little different next year with my buck decoys.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Deal. Well, I'll use a decoy. Like I said,
doesn't work all the time. Doesn't work every time, but I mean, George, the last 4 or 5 years, I've had some tremendous opportunities on some big mature bucks. And that DSD is the one. Donovan down in Kansas where I hunt, I used one of those for the first time, probably 6-7 years ago. And what sold me on it was I put it out, and I had does actually feeding up to it, next to it in the Milo. I mean, just right next to it. And ones, again, I won't say the name of the company because I don't want to be that way, but I've had deer blow at it. They'd look at it. They wouldn't come in. It was noisy. It just didn't work. And I got down and threw it in the creek. I didn't want to mess with it anymore. But when I saw them does coming in there feeding to it, I said, I was pretty impressed. And I think I had 5 or 6 bucks come in and knock my decoy down. It got to be annoying after a while, to be honest with you. I had to climb down, move my cameras because I'm self-filming for the show, set the decoy back up, get back in the stand, set everything back up. I'd do like 5 or 6 times. And after a while, I said, this is getting ridiculous. Yeah. But I'm just telling you, that just adds another level of excitement to your hunt. It's an amazing thing to see when it happens.
You brought up another good point too, and the reason I'm bringing it up because I've I've done it myself, but I want to hear your recommendation. You said that you leave your decoy out there. Do you leave it out there for a week at a time? I mean, how long do you leave a decoy out there in case you're going to move it? I mean, if band's going to go out there, and I guess it's how much you're going to hunt that spot in the next couple of days.
Well, I just leave it out there and hide it, and then if the wind's not right, or if I'm gonna go to another stand, I'll just go grab it real quick and move it.
Do you cover it up with anything, or just move it behind the?
No, I cover it up. I got cedars on top of it, and I mean, I hide it really well because I mean, those things aren't cheap, and you don't want it walking away on you. You know,
Right.
and you don't want to just leave it laying out there either, because the mature bucks are going to come in there and beat the heck out of it too. So you want to cover it up, with branches and hide it, or I'll usually find a dead cedar tree and take the cedar limbs and cover that up and like cover it up so nothing can see it, and just mark it, but I definitely like leaving it out in the timber instead of leaving it in my truck, because I know when I get to use it and set it up, it's going to smell like the woods.
Yep, it's going to be out there. Good tip.
Yeah.
So are you starting right now? You're just using your buck urine? Is that what you're using on
and the pictures I just showed you, I got premium buck dust in the scrapes right now, and then I got pre-orbital up in on the hemp ropes above it off the licking branches. And then on the trail, I went and there's another powder called Mesmerize, and I've been using I've been having really good luck. It's got kind of a licorice scent to it, and the deer have been really hitting that really good when they come in off the trail, and then they go about another 15 yards and they hit the scrape. So I'm having really good luck with that setup. And and not every scrape works. I mean, just to be honest, so don't if you go out and put a mock scrape and nothing hits it, go about another 100 yards, 200 yards, try and find another trail or a pinch point or a travel corridor, and try to establish a scrape there, and try different scents. Don't be afraid to mix it up, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you every one I put out has been active. I mean, it's probably 75-80%, but there's still that 20-25% that it didn't take. I mean, every deer is different, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, my experience, what I really recommend is the more overhanging branch you got, the bushier the branch, the more invitive you can make that branch, the more you'll see scrape activity. It's after you get used to making mock scrapes, and then all the scouting and seeing areas where scrapes are at, I can almost, I'm sure you can walk in the woods, or I can look at a field and pretty much look at my pinch points in certain areas and pretty much know where there's probably a licking branch, or I can probably tell you where there's scrape going to be, because they just kind of look for a certain particular type of, ground communication. Yeah. And then with a bow like you and I, it's one thing to be able to see it, but then we got to get that animal, 20, 25 yards. And so you're looking at those pinch points. And, that what I was trying to talk about in Illinois, there wasn't, I got in that woods and there was a big rub. There was a big buck he had a good rub line going. There wasn't one tree that was conducive to try to get up into hunting. And there was a multi-trunk tree that was down probably about 30 yards from what you'd call the perfect spot. And I told him in there, I said, I'm going to move this buck. You watch. I'm going to change his pattern, and I'm going to get him rubbing and scraping on my scrapes. And sure enough, and just the short time we were there, it didn't take to the second or third day, that buck started, working into the woods and working to that tree. And in fact, until I put the friend in that tree and they missed it. But it was a huge, high 160s buck. But you're able, if you just look at the pattern and know the lay of the ground and your wind, you can move those deer to actually, to change their pattern a little bit, at least so that you can set up the ambush. And I think it's also good for the bucks that you got running a gauntlet, who might not even be from your area. How many times I never saw this buck till the morning I shot him. He just showed up.
Yeah, I mean, you got your residential deer, and then right during the rut, you're going to get deer traveling a couple miles, if not more. And you just never know what's going to come down that trail, right? So if you got a good scrape line or a pinch point there that you can get a lot of opportunities, that's a good way to go. I like corners, a corner of a field. That's one of my favorite places to try to establish a scrape. And there's deer will always usually enter on a corner. If you ever notice that, there's always good trails on corners.
Yeah.
You know, there's always good game trails in that area. So I always kind of look and see, and, you know, during the summer, you know, I like to go, there's 2 times I like to go scouting. One is right after deer season's over. I like to go and I'll walk from the food source all the way back to the bedding area. Because if you bump a buck, it doesn't matter. Season's over. And by a year from, you know, 12 months later, that buck's not going to remember that.
Right.
So, you know, and you can go and find secondary and trails that join that you might not even know that's there. I found one property, it looked like a wagon wheel. There was like a circle, and then there was like trails intersecting it, like it looked like a wagon wheel. It was crazy. So I marked that on my Onyx. That's a good spot. I'm going to try and put a stand there. You know, so back trailing and right after deer season is a great time to do that. And then in June, when I go out and try to establish some scrapes, it doesn't hurt if you bump something, you know, but once I get everything up and running and get my cameras up, I try to stay out of there as much as I can.
Yeah, good point. And so, what do you use for cover set? I mean, besides,
I just spray down with my pure whitetail, you know, spray, and I take a shower. I whenever I go in the woods, I always try to take a shower with a scent free detergent. I treat it like a hunting situation. I wear my boots, I wear gloves, and I go in, and if I drive the Polaris in, you know, and then I'll walk the next 100 yards or whatever, and you know, I always try to treat it like a hunting situation, because you know, I've had people tell me, well, I go, you know, I don't understand why I'm not seeing deer, or you know, the deer seem to be they know when I'm in there, and I said, well, tell me how when you get out there, when you put your cameras up, what are you doing? And they, you know, I get out of the truck, I just go grab my stuff and go. I said, are you changing your boots? No, I use the same boots. I said, well, have you ever smelled your floor mats on your truck? Smell like gas. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to wear the same stuff that you're wearing in your vehicle. Change out to your hunting boots. I keep those in the back of my truck, and you know, I keep them either in a scent-free bag or a tub, so I don't have any odors on there that I don't want. And then I'll spray my boots down the bottom of it when I'm walking in, before I walk in and out. And like I said, I just treat it like a hunting situation.
You're absolutely right. And it's like, you know, especially, I'm not knocking the shotgun guys, but you definitely see a lot more orange sitting in trucks together, and you know, not you know, it seemed like bow hunters are always taking care of using the totes and trying to keep our scent down as we can.
Well, it's a different hunt. I mean, you know, if you're a muzzleloader or a shotgun hunter, God bless you. There's, you know, I love all our hunters. But you know, they can sit there and wait for a deer to be 150, 100 yards, 200 yards out, depending on the weapon they're using, where, you know, we're trying to get that deer into an intimate distance, 20 yards or less, you know, so it's a different philosophy, or it's a different strategy. So they, you know, they don't have to take the precautions that, you know, that if they're archery hunting, that you have to.
So you're doing your regular scouting. October's coming on. You know, the first week was, you know, I saw quite a few deer. All of a sudden, am I hitting what we call that October lull? Gene Wenzel used to believe that maybe it's if a lot of acorns are dropping and the deer happen to be back in the woods, guys aren't seeing them in the fields during that time, and a lot of stuff. So when is the time that Dan's going to sit here and say, hey, I'm going from my buck urine today, I'm going to start going to the doe and heat? When do you know it's time to start using the doe and heat?
I'll start using like the white lightning stuff, the doe estrus. I'll start using that October 25th, 26th. You know, you might get some early does coming in the heat a little bit early, but you know, October 25th to 26th, them big boys are usually up on their feet. They're scent checking. They're checking bedding areas. They're going and checking their scrape lines and rub lines, and they're daylighting. So, you know, even, you know, that time of year, I don't get excited about deer, getting really passionate about making it everyday hunt until that. When you know, George, I'm sure a lot of folks can relate to this. When I first started hunting, it ate me up. I mean, that's all I wanted to talk and do. I mean, I just went nuts, and you know, I was lucky to make a living off of it. But but you know, the one mistake, or one thing that I did, October opening day, I was in that stand and I was sitting 6-7 hours, and then I go the next day or the next day or the next day. You know, and then by the time when the hunting really starts getting fired up really good, I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out. Yeah. Or you've burnt your stands up. Yeah. Right. Because
both.
Yeah. Your best chance, according to the professionals, according to them, your best chance of killing a Pope and Young deer or a Boone and Crockett or a Pope and Young buck is the first time you go sit a stand.
Absolutely.
And then every time that you go back, your chances go down a little bit, because every time you go, no matter, I don't care what some of these other people say. This is just my humble opinion. Unless you're wearing a hazmat suit, every time you go in there, no matter what you do, you're going to be leaving some iota of scent.
Yeah.
Because you're exfoliating skin cells all the time. You're taking your little Debbie snack cakes out there, whatever, you're emitting a scent every time you go in there. I mean, now if you're running your ozonics, you're spraying down with your pure whitetail scent elimination. If you're doing your wash, you wash your clothes or run your, I'll wash my clothes in a scent-free laundry detergent, George, one time, and then I'll just use my ozonics to dry wash them. Okay. I don't want to keep putting them through the washer all the time, because
Right.
you don't want your clothes to fade, or the camo color to fade and all that other stuff. Unless I get blood or something on it, I just use my ozonics to clean my stuff. But
How often do you do that? Is that an every day or once a week?
when I get home, I'll put everything in my dry wash bag and I'll turn my ozonics on and wash
Every
it.
day.
It's every day. Yeah. And I haven't had an issue with that. So, but but if I get blood, or if I get something, if I spill coffee or something on me, I try not to wear my hunting clothes. I usually don't get dressed until I get to where I'm hunting. I'll wear a t-shirt that I've washed in my scent-free detergent, or I'll wear a pair of sweatpants or a base layer. Depending if it's cold, I'll wear my base layer when I'm driving. And then when I get to where I'm hunting, I'll get out of the truck and get dressed. And then that way I know that I didn't have anything that's going to contaminate my hunting clothes. It's going to smell. I know that sounds anal to do that, but it's worked really, really well for me.
Well, you're talking about an animal that they're, for one thing, I don't know if we ever can 100%, completely hide the human.
Not unless you're in a hazmat suit.
Yeah. And I think that, what we do, it's about the contaminating of the majority of the potent strength of a human. I know the other day and I spoke about this before, but like the deer here, I'm watching deer, and I know we got a west wind, and they're calm, they're gotten so used to us here that they're in the yard, and they'll look at me, and I'll go to just moving or cooking, and there's deer out there. They're just getting accustomed, and so I know they know my scent out there. And they've known it at this distance. This is what it smells like. I think the distance from that to right in your face ear snout of it, raises. So I think a lot of what I'm saying is the scent deterrence of what they do is they not killing the scent 100%, but they're masking it down to where it's a level. I think the animals are either considering it safe, or I'm going to raise my tail up, and maybe it's a little too strong, but it's not that strong a scent, as when they're closer. So I think that fools them a little bit. I have noticed, like on mature deer, that's why I mentioned to Larry when I first came on board years ago. I was talking about it. I said, well, how does mature deer seem to act to it? And I learned for myself, like on the Oxonic, they'll tell you to run it at a certain level. But I found that it depended on the conditions. If I didn't have any wind, I would put it down on very light, because it seems like the days that you didn't have any wind, you're still running that, sometimes you would catch that scent. I knew that ozonic scent was strong, and you'd see as a mature doe would walk in, or a good mature buck, if he got out there, I've noticed sometimes they sit there, and it's not like that ear snout of a human where their eyes are this big, is all of a sudden they'll stop, lick their nose, and they'll look up, and you'll see them, and they'll back up. And once they're out of that scent stream, they kind of back out and not have the alarm. Where I've seen younger bucks will hit that scent stream of that ozone, and you'll see that they know it's different. But if they walk past it, and once they get past that line of smell, their memory or whatever hasn't gone. They just forget it and move on.
Yeah, it's just something different that they're smelling. It doesn't
Exactly.
it doesn't alarm them, So,
but so right now we're talking again. We're looking at you're watching probably what the last week of October. You're going to start looking at putting the doe and heat stuff in.
Yeah, I'll go out and I'll just use premium buck dust right now. I'll put that out when I'm walking. I'll put that on my boots when I'm walking in. And then I'll probably, if we get a cold front, last year I think I shot my buck in Iowa October 11th, if I remember right. It was early, but we had that cold front come in, and I had deer. I wasn't in the stand 30 minutes, and I had deer all around me. It was awesome.
Oh
And then
wow.
I saw a couple bucks up on the food plot, and I went back the next night and I got my shot and I got him. But if we get some, 60, 65-degree afternoons, then I'll probably get out there and sit a few times. But other than that, I probably won't start hunting until like the 17th, 18th, the 20th, around there. And it just depends what the weather's doing, George.
Dude, it's same with me. And that's, I guess it's kind of the beauty of the trail cameras. When we were younger, we had down there, forget me, the first ones were strings that came out and the deer crossed.
Trail timers.
Yeah, that was our
Yeah.
trail timer and
Yeah.
look at the day. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, to me, it's a tremendous scouting tool because, I mean, I love sitting out in the woods and I will, but if I'm watching and I got a particular deer in my head that I want to shoot, I won't go really hunt that spot until I pick up one of the deer that I consider, my shooter. If it's something that my wife would want to go in and they'll go and set. But what I'm saying is I'm staying out, and because of the beauty of the trail cam, it's for that particular trail that where I'm hunting, I haven't seen anything now if one does pop up and, even if it would happen to be once or twice, then we'll start hunting that spot and start looking. But that's the beauty of the trail cam, being able, like Gene Wenzel said, it's easy to pass up a pretty good buck when you've got a huge buck on camera as well.
Yeah. Well, you can still go hunt. I mean, just what I try to do is I hunt the perimeter stands. That way I can slip in there, slip out without disturbing the majority of the timber or between the bedding and the food. They don't know I'm in there. I can sit on that perimeter, and that way if I get lucky and they come around the perimeter, I might have an opportunity. But on my rut stands, that's in that core area, I don't want to go hunt that until that end of that first week or second, getting into that third week of October, because that's going to be my best opportunity, I think, on taking a mature deer that I might be looking to take.
Are you one of those guys who can do an all-day set?
It just depends. I'm filming. The older I get, the worse it is, because I have to lug all that crud out there with me. Thank God for Fourth Arrow. I can, at least their camera bases and their arms are light. But
you are old. You are old.
I am. I remember when I could go and hunt all day with just my Polaroid.
Can't remember where I used to sit.
No, but yeah, I usually, if I go, I usually sit 6-7 hours. I'll get out there, if it's early season, if we got a 60-65 day, I'll get out there about 1 o'clock and hunt till dark.
And I think that's to me some of the biggest mistake. And I'll talk for myself, because the more serious you get, that there is some areas, and when you get near the end of the season, when it starts getting bitter cold, and you might be hunting, we're all going to be hunting food sources, and food sources is one thing, in the morning time that are trying to definitely.
You don't want to hunt those.
Yeah,
you're going to run your deer out.
And I think the problem, a lot of people, because you can't determine what time, it depends when they're going to come out. But some people, I think, they always go to that traditional last 2 hours. And the problem with that, if whatever deer I seem to bump, if there was a big buck back there and you bump that deer, I don't believe that there's enough time. If that buck didn't leave and he stayed hidden, there's not enough time for that buck to all of a sudden feel calm and forget about it and walk back out. I think if you're going in an area that possibly I could intrude in deer, then I'll choose to go in at noon, or like you said, 1 o'clock. So if I happen to bump a deer that's out in the field, and I not knowing what direction, but once they go in, if you're in there early enough, I think there's a time that the buck have calmed down, and finally he'll come back out, and I don't think he'll change his pattern.
Well, you got to remember, late season, them deer ain't moving very far. They're trying to conserve as much energy as possible. So, I mean, you that's why if you get out there at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and, just ease in there. But they're not going to be that far off that food source, because they're going to be wanting to stay close to that and conserve their energy, especially if it's super cold.
Okay, real quick, I want your best rattling rut story excitement you've ever experienced out in the woods?
Well, I'll
But,
tell you one of my favorites that I didn't actually get the deer. How's that? I was hunting
that's what
down.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I was down in Sheridan. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? I had my buck decoy out, and I was looking up the finger towards the bedding area, and I just saw a flash of a tail. So I went out, and I just happened to have my little my little Intimidator Ninja call here.
Yeah.
And he flashed that tail, and I let out a and then I saw an antler, and he stopped, and then he started coming my way. Now I'm self-filming. I got the decoy out, pointed out 20 yards to my right, and I get the camera. I'm moving the camera, and I saw him coming around. So I put my grunt call down, and he came around. I had my wind scent unit running. I don't know how every minute or every 3 minutes or whatever. So I grabbed my bow, and I couldn't see him anymore. He came down that finger, and it was too thick. I couldn't see him. So I'm going, well, he's either going to come around the front or he's going to bust out in front of me there. So I kept looking. I got the camera, because I got to be the camera guy first. And next thing I know, I hear behind me, and I'm going, oh crap. So I'm sitting there, I got the camera on, and I got my thumb on the zoom control, and I'm backing it out. So I'm trying to, because he's right behind me, and I back it out, and then I hear him go around this I don't know what it's, them thorn bushes, them big thorn bushes.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call them, but they're just, I hate them. So he goes behind that. I take the camera and I swing the camera over. He's coming out of that corner to my right, and all I saw was the antlers coming out, and I saw his nose, and then I seen his neck, and then I seen his chest. And I take the camera, and I'm everything's on. I got record running, and I go, well, I'm going to have to draw. So I go back to full draw, and I'm just sitting there. All he's got to do is just do one more step. And I'm just sitting there. And he just, all of a sudden, he just stops, turns around, and goes back down the hill. Larry told me if I would have had that buck facing me, I had it facing away from me, because I thought the deer were going to be coming in front of me, because the bedding area was to the south of me. They were going to be coming down, but he circled me. And Larry goes, man, if you would have had that thing inverted, he would have came in and you would have killed him. That was probably a 180-inch deer.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. And I was just, man, my heart was pumping. I'm sitting there going, come on, Lord, please. I'm sorry. Give me one. Come on, one more step. I mean,
one more step.
Yeah. Well, so you know what I did when Ryan and Larry and I went out there this year? I cut that booger. If that ever happens again, I'll have a shot. But yeah. See, and I don't like going into when I first started, man, it looked like a road crew went in there. I cut everything out. I was cutting my back, the foliage and stuff behind me, which you do not want to do. And I was a greenhorn. I was an idiot. I didn't know any better, but I was cutting my back, what do you call that? Back, they were silhouetting me in the tree, because I didn't
highlighting you.
my back cover. I was taking out my back cover. So they would look up and silhouette me in the tree. So, and that cost me, I don't know how many deer that cost me. So, when for the last 10 years now, when I go into an area, I really don't cut a lot. I try to have as least amount of influence on an area as possible. I'll cut maybe a shooting lane here or a shooting lane there, but I don't want to cut a lot of stuff, because that's their living room, George. They're 24/7, right? So they know when something's up. But yeah, that was an exciting hunt. That was good. And oh man, I tell you,
that buck again.
They're all do what?
Did you ever see that buck again?
Never saw him again. No, never saw him again. I showed Larry and Ryan the footage, and then I had another one. I moved down the I'm in a really nice funnel. Okay. And it's just a great spot. And I got my decoy out, and I'm in another tree, and I hate filming myself for deer. Turkey, I don't mind it so much, but I hate it for whitetails. So I'm sitting there, and I hear bah, 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 and I'm going, oh, that sounds good. So I turn the camera on, and I get it in front of me. This one was coming from my left, and a doe come running up behind me. So I grab my bow, and I got that buck decoy, and this buck came in, but he came in and he kind of did like an S and went to the back end of the deer decoy, and he's giving me a quartering to shot, not a quartering away, but a quartering to me. And it's like, man, I just don't like that shot. I just, and I'm at full draw on him, and he's a dandy buck. And I just couldn't shoot him because I didn't think I didn't want to wound him, And, this is a 170 plus deer. I mean, big old bases on him, my heart's thumping. My knees are shaking. And anyway, he just went after the doe. And I showed Larry and them guys, look, why didn't you shoot that? I didn't think I had a good shot. He goes, what's wrong with you? You could have shot that deer right there. I would have killed that deer every day of the week. I said, uh-huh. So anyway, I went back and looked at my deer angles on computer, and he was right. If I would have shot him just a hair behind where I was looking at, I would have took out both the lungs. Yeah. But again, I went back and it made me go back and analyze shooting angles and where to aim on that. But I that's just not my favorite shot to take. I want to take a broadside or a quartering away. That quartering away shot, George, is my favorite. It's money.
It's money. And of course, you've got to make sure on the frontal that you do hit that pocket that you're looking for in that dimple. Yeah. And then you got to hope that you get good penetration, and that's how we find deer by, the blood and getting a good blood, and then finding the blood on the ground. If they bleed internal, that can be tough. If your arrow's plugging up a hole. Yeah. Like I said, I've killed bucks there when I was younger. But I'm kind of like you today on a big, huge deer, and I'm shooting lighter poundage than I did. And I'm not shooting the 80 pounds. I'd probably be like you today. I'd probably err on the safety instead of, like you said.
I don't want to wound anything. I've always been taught to have reverence for the animals that I'm hunting.
Absolutely.
And I have more respect for them than that. And if I can't kill them clean, I just don't want to take the shot. But Larry's a better hunter than I am. Larry and Philip and all them guys are better bow hunters. And, I'm a good hunter, but I would say those guys are better hunters than I am. And Larry's a better shot than I am. I'm a good shot, but Larry's a better shot. And, you gotta be comfortable with your shot selection, and you got to know your limitations. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Cause I'm with you. See, I'm only shooting 58, 59 pounds now. And I did that after my rotator cuff surgery a few years ago. And I just want to make sure I'm getting a complete pass through or as much penetration. Cause I'm just telling you what, there is nothing worse than sitting there worrying about a deer all night because you had a marginal hit because you didn't take your time. And I hate that feeling, man. We've all been there, George, and I really don't want to relive that again.
I agree with you. There's two types of feelings on wounded deer. Like you said, there's those that, I executed the shot. I waited patiently. The shot feels like it was right on. If I had to do over again, I wouldn't do anything different. I like those. And those, you still can have something. You could hit a branch, and it's the ones like you said that you knew better and you forced it, knowing that you knew better, and yet you didn't take control of your emotions, and the overwhelming to get an arrow in the deer, and it overwhelmed the importance of the accuracy of where you hit the deer. Then I would be pissed. Absolutely.
Well, I'd be sick. I just don't want to wound anything. Even when I'm turkey hunting, if I ain't got the right shot, or if I don't think I can get him, I've shot 96 birds with my bow now, and I just to me, I hate turkeys. And the reason I say that is turkeys humbled me more than any other animal on the face of the earth that I've ever hunted. They laughed at me when I called when I first, and I know it took me 5 years to harvest a turkey with a bow. And I love them, but I hate them. And I just want to make sure I'm taking the best shot I can.
It got so easy shooting them with a bow, Dan, that I started putting the M80s on my broadheads and lighting it, and then popping it, shooting it next to their head face. And it's that timing. You got to release that arrow. Just it actually, if you filmed that and watching an M80 go off next to a turkey,
he's kidding, folks. Don't want to tell anybody that he's being serious. No, you wouldn't do that. just, I tell you, it's neat to get out there and see the stuff. I'll never forget when my buddy Larry Anderson was alive. Did you ever meet Larry Anderson, the wildlife artist?
No.
Larry was up here in Des Moines and one of the best wildlife artists I ever met. Just super nice guy. And he kind of took me under his wing when I moved up to Des Moines 25 years ago. And he had 600 acres down by Woodburn, Iowa. Just some of the best deer hunting in the country. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And he goes, you can hunt with me. It's just you and me. And it was awesome. And I was sitting in a tree, and because I started the TV show after I did Channel 8 News for 6 years. I was doing an Outdoors Dan segment on Channel 8 News for a while. And that's how Outdoors Tradition started. Because I had people saying, why don't you make a show? We like what you're doing. Sure. And so I was hunting on Larry's cell filming, because it was Jeff Jorgensen and I doing the show. And I'm sitting there, George, and I heard a deer bleat, and I looked behind me and I saw a 200+ inch deer coming. But the problem was he was cross fence, and I won't shoot over a fence.
All right.
And that deer was coming, and I grabbed my grunt call, and I'm sitting there. And then I hit the old, and that buck could care less what I could have sang Yankee Doodle Dandy up there. He wouldn't have cared.
He didn't care.
He was on that hot doe, and I'm going, come on, man, come over here. And I'm shaking, George. I'm literally shaking. This deer is so big, and I'm just watching him because he's not coming in. And she went into the timber, and he was in, and I had to sit down after it was over. And I went back, flipped the LCD screen, and I wanted to watch the footage. I was so shook up. I double hit record. I didn't get the footage.
Well, I can see that happening.
Yeah. Them deer, it doesn't matter doesn't matter really what I'm hunting. When I get jacked up like that, that's what it's all about, right? That 10, 15.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now you're in a situation, 200-inch deer come in. That's a different Dan. He's killed a few big bucks now on his wall. But he has this 200-incher coming in, and all of a sudden, it's great light and it's illegal to shoot. But your camera guy says, I can't see. I don't have enough film. I can't get him. It's not light enough. So let me tell you, would you sit here and as the deer hunter Dan kicks in and says, heck with it, smoked meat? Or it would be the guy saying, okay, we'll wait till the light's better and we'll get him next time. What would it be?
Well, we always want to tell the truth, so the man upstairs is happy with us, right?
That's right.
I always say it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
That's my man. That's my man right there. Yeah.
Because 90% of the time I'm filming myself, because Ryan's with Larry and Paul's down in Oklahoma. So, a lot of the times I'm on the show, it's me self-filming. I will tell you this, though. I'm going to tell you something about Larry McCoy. Do you know what happened last year?
No.
Did you hear that story? So I shot that deer. We had that cold front come in, and I shot that deer like 25 minutes before last light. I had plenty of light, got great footage of him, shot him at 40 yards. He came in, gave me a broadside, and I had my wind scent running. He was going towards my scrape. He stopped and put his head down. I said, money. So, I shot him, got the arrow, went right where I wanted it. And he took off, and I did all my recreates, did all my, oh man, did you see that, folks? Just, blah, blah, blah. I did all that, and I got down, and I had an e-bike. I bought an e-bike last year because I was thinking, those things are slick, and I still think they're slick, but I guess I'm too fat and old to operate things like that anymore. But I got a little trailer with it. So I throw my I get down, I get all my stuff done. I marked where my arrow, what my first blood was, marked all that, throw everything in the trailer, and I get back up. The stupid bike, I'm going up a hill like this, George, and the bike stops halfway up the hill. Those bikes are not,
the fat signal come on.
Yeah. And they have a button on there that you can press. If you stop, it gets stuck like that. It's supposed to walk your bike up for you under power. Well, that wasn't working either.
That's called the holy crap button.
Yeah. So I'm dragging all this stuff up, and I get up there, and I'm going, they're going to find me here dead. And I get back to the truck and I call Larry. I said, man, I just shot a really nice buck. And I said, I'm done. He goes, what's the matter? I told him what happened. He goes, no kidding. He goes, where you at? And I said, I told him where I was hunting. He goes, I'll be there in 3 hours. He lives in Kansas City. So he got in a truck at like 8:30 at night, drove up, got here at like midnight or 1 in the morning. And we went back and we had fog. It was so cold that night. We got freezing fog, and we had blood for about 100 yards. Now I knew I killed the deer. I mean, I hit him great, but deer can go 100, 150 yards sometimes. They're just, this was a big buck. And anyway, Larry came up there and we lost blood because it froze. We couldn't see it. And so we got back and went back to the house, got about 4 hours sleep, went out and I brought my 4-wheeler and we hopped down. We drove down to where my stand was, and Larry looks over and goes, he's right there. We were within 50 yards of the deer. We just couldn't see him. And anyway, so Larry came, but I'm going to tell you something. That's the kind of guy Larry McCoy is. That's a buddy right there. Drive 3 hours at night when he's tired to help me find that deer. And I tell you what, George, them e-bikes are nice, but they're heavy, and you don't want to be on a hill with a hauling.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it took everything I had to get that thing up the hill.
He jackknifed his e-bike. Yeah.
No, I didn't jackknife it. It just quit. The battery. It was like, and you know what I did? I sold it the next day. I said, I'm done with this thing. Goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then Larry found it for you the next day. Is that what you're saying?
We got it. We got back to where we were. We got on the 4-wheeler and I drove down to where my stand was, and he was right there. He just circled around. We were within 50, 60 yards of him at that night. We just couldn't couldn't see the blood because it froze.
A good deer?
Oh, it was nice deer. It was high 150s.
Yeah, good deer.
Yeah. Hey, trust me, they're all good deer to me.
Well, Dan, I tell you what, folks, it's pretty good stuff. The pure whitetail, like I said, is amazing stuff. I would go, my wife will have it at the bottom of the screen, how to get a hold of them, but I'm sure it's probably purewhitetail.com.
Purewhitetail.com. And honestly, George, they've got rut packages coming out. You can go and look when you go on the website. You go on the packages, folks, because you can get pre-rut, you can get rut packages, and that rut package it's a great time of year to buy that right now. And then like next year, if you want to start doing a summer scrape, they've got summer scrape packages that you can do too. And it gives you a little shoulder pack, and it gives you everything that you would need to do that. And they're really economical. And I would put them right up there with a George and Diane waterfall call. I mean, they're good.
And they're very, you know what, and it's what a great way. It's a great tool to scout. It's what a great tool to try to use to, if there's, like I said, we're always trying to put that extra trick in the bag there. But like with me, when it comes to the late season, everybody knows that the more big bucks have been killed by chasing that white, the female out there. And one thing I do believe, that deer communicate a lot through the scent, the scrapes. If there's one thing that I've learned to be able to attain, there's two things. You can have a food source, you can have a food plot and lay a camera out and watch that. But during the rut, when the deer are going to be at their weakness, at least the big buck is going to make that mistake. It's probably going to be that pre-rut around the rut. And by utilizing this stuff and trying to get them to come to a certain point, it can be done. And like I said, the scent thing, the only thing I found that helped me, and especially on mature deer, I'm talking deer more than 4 years old, I never grunted. Used the grunt. There was different ways of me communicating. The blasted roar worked for me many times. Where the grunt, if you notice, when deer are doing a tendon grunt, they're always moving. Yeah. And I think when deer see that, they look up. If you don't have a decoy there, either he's going to sneak out or he's going to circle downwind. Either way, it's not good for you, in that first encounter.
No, it gives them something visual to reconcile what they're hearing. So if they see it and they hear it, chances are they're going to get curious and come in. So, but
I found that the fawn bleat, and I started looking back, and I got a fawn bleat back. Man, I wish I could say that. Early 80s. I was a youngster, And I remember reading on it, and guy ran our archery shop. I looked up, and it was a fox fawn bleat. I read an article in Outdoor Life magazine because we didn't have no internet, you know. And so I walked in, I said, I want this fox fawn bleat. They even gave the model. They ordered it in for me. And I had that fawn bleat, and I killed 2 bucks in Michigan back when the first year you could kill 2 bucks right away with a fawn bleat. And I've used that fawn bleat ever since. And when I go back and I look at the bucks that I've called on, I mean, I've seen it work on all bucks, but when I'm talking about on mature deer, the 4-year-old and older, I've seen those, you know, deer that when they're way out of range, first of all, that high pitch bleat is normal. A deer can be doing that, and usually that bleeding, I've heard many a times when there's a buck pinning down a doe and he runs that fawn off, and that, especially if that fawn's a baby button buck, he'll sit there and whine and cry constantly and not leave that mother, and that poor fawn would bleat 24/7. You go in the dark and hear him out there, me. And it's so when I would do this and I'd see that big buck out there, I'd hit that bleed and they would stop. Yeah. And the system I would do is when they turn to look, when they lose about enough intention, they start to go forward, I would bleat 3 times super fast.
Yeah.
And every time I've had that buck move to come in, either got killed or I just couldn't get the right shot, but it moved them. And the reason I think it's been so effective is that what happens, you know, he's out there. That was a new buck I saw in the area. He's chasing does. There might be, you know, he's thinking that there's a buck that's got a doe pinned down. When he hears that fawn bleating, that's what it is, that he's not far from his mother and he's away from his mother because she's got a buck tending her tail. Yeah. And that's why, and it's natural. It's normal in the whitetail. You know, I remember if Primos back in the early days when they first came out with the fawn bleat, they'd show these guys being in the middle of the woods and screaming on that fawn bleat. And next thing you know, here come these does because of maternal instinct would come running in to that fawn bleat. And to me, I would, you know, snort wheeze and all that other, but the I've had that hitting that fawn bleat when they're out there, you know, at a couple 100 yards or 150 yards, you know, they're out there, and I don't want to bring too much attention. You can just turn and hit that fawn bleat. And then, like I said, I hit those 3 quick ones. I believe that they think that there's a hot doe that's being pinned down. And he's going to come over.
Yeah, I don't snort wheeze unless I got a buck decoy out in front of me. Yeah. You know, and that's only if I don't think he's going to come in. I'll hit that as, to tick him off, but that's the only time, George, honestly, I try to snort wheeze. Now, Larry's always says he does different things all the time, but what I'm saying, folks, is what works for me. I'm not saying what I'm saying you have to do that. I would never tell you that. But they make several different vocalizations. Don't be afraid to try one. If they're not coming into your shooting area, you really don't have anything to lose. Just don't call when they're looking at you. If they're looking down your direction, try not to call, because they're gonna pinpoint you pretty quick.
The only time I snort wheezed, I think, out in the fields at one time climbing up my stand, I got caught in the privates with my T step. And I kind of did a little snort wheeze on that. Ooh.
Yeah. Come on, George.
Took the wear right out of you.
Yeah, you were up there in a tandem stand with Diane. You were up there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, buddy, I appreciate it. And folks, it's that time of year. Like I said, we'll look down on the screen there. We'll have, Outdoor Call Radio on there. We're also going to talk about pure whitetail. But also, though, I'd like to talk about the Trinsic that was on Fourth Arrow that
Fourth Arrow and Winsent.
Okay, we'll have that.
You need to talk to Joe and the guys up there and introduce yourself. They're great stuff, great products. That Winsent 2.0 unit, they just actually came out with a new mat system that they're little mat, they're like a wafer that you can actually put into your travel bags. I've got the Earth Scent. I'm going to use that as a cover scent in my travel bags on my camo, so that keeps that smelling like dirt. And then they also have a deer smell that you can put out on a trail or put it on a licking branch. And then they actually have a little rechargeable heater unit. You could slide that mat in, and it disperses that hot scent up in the wind column too. That they just came out with those, and those are pretty slick. But yeah, wind scent, fourth arrow. If you're a crossbow hunter, George, or if you like using a muzzleloader, or that final that final rest system is awesome. It just they make a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, fourth arrow.
Fourth arrow camera arms.
Michigan company, right?
Pardon me?
They're a Michigan company.
Yeah, they're up in Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, go blue. See, I moved out here. I love my Iowa, but I'm still always going to be a Wolverine.
Yeah, well, that's all right. That's all right.
So,
yeah, the biggest mistake I made in radio when I moved to Iowa?
What's that?
I called the Hawkeyes the Iowa State Hawkeyes, and the Iowa Cyclones. I inverted them.
Oh, yeah.
I never got so much hate mail in my life.
I bet you did.
I just didn't follow college football. I just, but I learned real quick. It's the Iowa.
One time. You make one time mistake.
Huh?
They give you one forgiveness.
Well, so far I've been on for 26 years. I think they forgave me, but that was not good.
Do you have anything with your scrapes or anything? Are you putting videos on? Do you have any of your Instagram or anything that you're putting your videos on Facebook?
I just talk, when we're doing the radio shows on Saturday morning, or on Buck Talk Radio on Wednesdays on the Outdoor Call Radio app at 5. I mean, I've got the guys from Woodhaven on, and we'll talk. And I just had a great show. I don't know if you and Diane saw that or not, but I had a young man from Iowa called Legacy Tracking. He raises deer tracking puppies. So if you get a deer that you can't find, he'll go and find your deer for you. That was a great show. I learned some stuff.
Where's he out of? Where's he out?
He's out here in Des Moines.
Oh,
yeah. He contacted me about a month ago and said, "Hey, Dan, I love your program. Can we talk about this?" And I said, "You know what? There's a lot of people are wanting more information about that, because everybody wants to recover their deer. So
make every effort. You're right.
Yeah. So I learned a little bit more about how wounded deer disperse scent and their feet, or their hooves. And I learned a lot. So that show, but on the scrapes and stuff, George, whenever we talk about them on the show, it's usually a video like this. We live stream everything. Folks can go and check all that out for sure. So
awesome. Well, check it out. Make sure that you say, "Hey, I like this show. I like George." Dan, he's all right too, but we really like George. We want to see more of him. Appreciate it, Dan, for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for doing what you do on the app. We love having you on Wednesdays.
Well, this is a very like mock scrapes and stuff. There's very things that I really are close to me, and things I really get into, and mock scrapes one of them. Pure whitetail, folks. It's a game changer. But you start putting the science to work, and that's basically what a lot of this is. Science isn't 100%, but I'm telling you what, anything I can do each day that I can draw, and the trail camera will tell you. You kind of watch that, you'll see your buck activity can increase. You might be seeing more mature deer, but as this goes, and as your mock scrapes go, and you utilize them right, and you're going to bring new bucks you're going to see new bucks from other areas pop up, and that's time to whack and get them. Like Dan said earlier, you see them, and that's why I kind of like, once I see them, I want to get in there and try to shoot them, because there's nothing better, and there's no more first times. There's only one first time.
Yeah.
So anyway, folks, I appreciate it. And all you guys out there hunting this weekend, getting in your tree stands, think of your loved ones. Always wear your safety belt, be safe, and always hunt safe, hunt smart, and may the good Lord be your guide.
Well, I'll be out there, rain is shining, all a part of the great design. Bring it on, I can never get enough, because that's what legends are made of.